Assalamu alaikum. Good day. How is everybody? Today we are going to discuss the positive effect on autistic children of close-knit extended families in South Asia specifically. Extended families are found all over the world, but in some parts of the world, such as South Asia or Middle East or maybe Africa, especially Northern Africa, they play a significant role in the development of the children and how the behavior of a child is defined in later life. So we are going to discuss that. So people who do not belong to this part of the world can also join in. Well, I forgot to mention that in Central Asia and Russia too, the extended families play a vital role in the upbringing of the mindset of a child. So that's what I have observed and I know that. Okay. So now, today, we are not just talking about any child, we are talking about autistic children because autistic children need special training when it comes to social life, when it comes to understanding social cues, when it comes to understanding the facial expressions of the people who are around these children. Because what these children lack is that some of them, not all of them, because autism is a spectrum and children are very different from each other. They have different shades and different levels. Even like level 1 autism or level 2 autism have different shades in them, have different categories in them. Not distinct categories. There are gray areas. They tend to merge into each other. The characteristics tend to overlap. So let's talk about especially neurodivergent children who are autistic, who need more social life to learn social cues, to learn facial expressions. Because for example, if you have a neurotypical child and you have a neurodivergent child, and for example you are sad, the neurodivergent child, most probably, most of them, but not all of them, because some of the neurodivergent children are extremely good at picking up the emotions and the vibes of a particular environment, of a particular place, or of a particular person. But most of the times, a neurodivergent child wouldn't understand that the other person is sad, and the child or the adult, not always the child or the adult, would try to crack a joke, which a neurotypical child wouldn't do that, and that would result in an unwanted situation, or in a tense situation, or in an atypical situation. So how do joint families help? So this is what I'm telling you, that a neurodivergent child finds difficulty in picking up cues and facial expressions most of the times, but not all neurodivergent children. So how do the extended family members, or more common interaction with extended family members, not necessarily living within the house, but within the community, within the neighborhood, or within the city, help develop children their social skills. So this is the topic today. I've given an explanation of the topic. Now, what is important here is that I should differentiate between a joint family and an extended family. For those listeners of mine who do not know the concept of joint families in South Asia, and joint families are all over the world, but specifically they are more common in South Asia. The joint family earlier on, a few generations back, meant that many siblings living together with their families. Sometimes they lived independently but within a premises. Since a very big premises big area is not possible for all of them to survive together anymore because of the rising costs of land, what they're doing is that parents are living with one of their children and the grandchildren. So that's how it works, because there are no old homes in South Asia and the cost of living is very high. And once parents are not earning anymore, they tend to stay with one of their children. They're earning more for more emotional support, and it is also socially likable or socially respectable for one of the children to stay with their parents. And parents are usually not left alone in South Asian society. So they are living together, the grandparents, one of their children and their grandchildren. Because what South Asians have realized recently is that when many siblings live together with their families within a premises, it is a bit unsafe for the children once they grow up, or there can be children of different ages, and that is not safe. Anyways, so here I mean joint family is a family where parents, their parents, I mean grandparents, parents, and children are living together. They're like 3 generations or maybe possibly 4 generations living together. And a close-knit extended family is like close relatives, mom's siblings, dad's siblings, or mom's cousins, dad's cousins, grandparents' siblings, grandparents' cousins. So these are defined as extended family. So they are living together. Sometimes in a joint family, which is a very common scenario in South Asia, is that sometimes the joint family also includes one unmarried sibling of either father or mother. So that's how it works. So we are going to discuss, so this is all the introduction, and we are going to discuss how such family setup helps improve the social skills of a neurodivergent child. So when a child grows up in such a social setup, what happens is that the child is exposed to low pressure interactions. What is a low pressure interaction? High pressure interaction is when the child all of a sudden sees a stranger and the child is made to talk to the stranger. But a low pressure interaction is that the child has been seeing or has been in contact with cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and the child is making frequent social contacts with all of these people. So what happens that these low pressure interactions help child develop social skills, and then once these social skills are established, the child can go on and interact or try to interact with complete strangers. The next thing is the constant exposure. Constant exposure means like the child is immersed in a social environment where the child is listening to everybody talking around. When the child is always being exposed to any of the family members, and that helps child develop social skills because the child is completely immersed in it. The child has no other option, or he takes it as part of life. And one more thing, that in such social systems, like the adults, they come and they communicate with the children more often. They talk to the children, such as an aunt and an uncle who loves the child really well or a lot, can come and talk to the child very frequently. Or if the child is on the street, if the environment is safe and the child is allowed to go out and play in a playground with one of the adults, the child would like meet the cousins or aunts or uncles, and they would ask children, the neurodivergent child, how his day was or how good he is at that moment, and the child would learn to communicate. This is very important, because if you're not living in such a system, if you do not have an extended family living around, what happens is that the child sees complete strangers even in the parks or anywhere. So if you are living in a social system where the extended families are living nearby or within a city, there are more chances of the child coming across these relatives on the streets, in the grounds, or anywhere around. So that is really helpful, because the child learns how to communicate with people who are moving around on the streets, and later on this will develop his skills of communicating people who are moving around on streets as an adult. Because of course, as a child, one must not communicate with strangers on the streets, but this would lead to the skill of talking to strangers on the streets, in the banks, on the roads, or in post offices, anywhere. Now, the next most important thing is that the child is learning social skills in an emotionally safe environment. The emotional warmth and comfort is there. Although the child might face problem in communicating socially with even the extended relatives, but still the child is secure. And this helps in developing further skills in life, further social skills in life. And another important thing is that under such circumstances, like if the family is a joint family where the three generations are living together, or one of the aunts or uncles who hasn't yet married or hasn't yet taken up a career is living together, is living with the parents, the caregiving responsibilities are shared. Now, a neurodivergent child living with a stressed parent is also a very stressful condition. The child needs to see happy and fresh faces who are happy, who are full of life. But if you know a neurodivergent child parent who is stressing out the whole day, or is cleaning up after a neurodivergent child, because remember, neurodivergent children make a lot of mess, and the parent is all the time cleaning up, or teaching the child hygiene, or teaching the child how to manage his things, how to put away his clothes, how to keep the house clean, that is hell of a job, and that results into a stressed parent with a stressed face, no matter what. No matter how much the parent tries to keep a happy face, but the stress is back there with a lot of work. Because if you know, a neurotypical child wouldn't mess around a lot. A neurodivergent child would make a lot of mess, would eat very with a lot of mess. You'll have to clean up after a neurodivergent child. You have to set up their routines, and sometimes in some cases you have to teach them how to change clothes, how to put away things, how to make their school bag, how to set up a pencil case for the school. So these things are stressful. But if they have other members, so when the parent is stressed, these children can go to other members for an hour or two, and that would help the parent get refreshed or get the energy levels back. So Yani, what I'm telling is that the neurodivergent parent is usually hyperstimulated after dealing with all this, and it can come as a respite when the child goes and interacts with other members of the joint family. Now, another important thing here I want to add is that if there are 3 generations or possibly 4 generations, the child would learn from each one of them if they are ready to do that, like listen to stories, listen to anecdotes, or the grandparents or the aunts or the uncles telling them how to perform certain things, how to eat or how to interact, or they can even play with the child. So this is a lot of social exposure. So possibly, I don't mean to say that it is the rule. Possibly because of this, we saw less neurodivergent children in the past, but they were there, of course. But maybe because of such interactions, their symptoms were less intense. Now the thing is, what I want to tell you here is that whatever I'm telling you is not research. It is just my own personal observation. And how did I make this observation? I observed 2 boys growing up with the same level of autism, very closely related to each other. And these boys had the same level of autism, yet developed with different symptoms. The first boy, like let's call the boy Mansoor, he was born and bred in South Asia and lived in a joint family system with a close-knit extended family system. And the child was never diagnosed. There was never a need for the child. A need was never felt about getting the child diagnosed for any of these situations, any of these. Child Mansoor, who was born and bred in Pakistan, had some quirks, had some idiosyncrasies. It was different, but since the child was very good at studies, so it was attributed maybe his high IQ is leading to these problems, etc., etc. He had stimming, but that stimming was not intense, though the stimming was there, but it was just accepted by everybody because the child had no social problems, was making friends well, was communicating with the family members well, understood the family members, and informed the mother about the emotions he felt around him or her, since that we are calling the child Mansoor, so we can take it as a boy. So this is how the boy was. And the boy was later diagnosed with autism once the boy immigrated to Canada. There, maybe because he faced loneliness in the beginning, maybe because of that his neurodivergent symptoms, the autism symptoms flared up, and he approached a psychiatrist who diagnosed the person with autism, who is now an adult, and the psychiatrists over there, especially in the Americas and the Europe, in the first world, are really good, and they can diagnose a person, an individual with autism, in spite of the fact that they might be masking. So what is masking? Masking is a behavior in which a neurodivergent person learns to mimic the so-called normal activities. So what I'm saying is that so-called normal activities, because normal is always relative. What might be normal for you might not be normal for others. So normal is a relative term. So the child might be masking or whatever, but the psychiatrists in the first world know how to penetrate the mask and diagnose. Unfortunately, this does not happen in the third world, especially in South Asia. I have myself observed children being diagnosed of autism or of not autism. Like the psychiatrist has declared that the child has no autism after a brief session of 1 hour. So here I want to stress that autism can never be diagnosed in an hour. It takes at least 15 days and a very skillful psychologist or a psychiatrist to penetrate through the mask and diagnose the child. So this is very important, and you must know that. So the child was diagnosed, and then in the first world he had the privilege of throwing away the mask or throwing away whatever he had been pretending, or maybe wasn't pretending, he had already learned it, or maybe he had assimilated the whole social lessons, the social ways, and he had assimilated, and he practiced it well. But in Canada, he had the privilege to be himself. So this is just a debate that either the child was masking back in the South Asia, or the child had actually assimilated the social norms. We still don't know, because when I researched on internet, on Google, for the papers about autism and joint families or things like that, I couldn't find anything. I found only one paper, South Asian paper, but unfortunately I have no faith in South Asian research for two reasons, especially in psychology. And there is very less research in psychology about South Asian population. and there need to be. We don't know anything about South Asian psychology much. So when there are two reasons I don't have faith in South Asian research papers. The first reason is that research protocols usually are not followed. Second reason is, and the researcher themselves are biased. They want a conclusion, a result which they like first. And the second thing, especially when it comes to psychology, in order to satisfy the social norms, the South Asian social norms, or in order to promote the South Asian social norms. And the second, when they go for surveys, there are surveys and personal interviews for psychological research, and people usually don't tell the truth because it's a very common thing in South Asia to hide your weaknesses and to promote your strengths. They don't, mostly people don't acknowledge or don't own their own weaknesses. So now coming back to our topic, if the child is living in a joint family and a close-knit extended family system, the child might be detected early, might be one of the relatives, extended relatives, would find a different behavior and would inform the parents, because this is very important. Mostly mothers are so involved in the housework and in caregiving and in preparing food that they don't notice. That is also possible. Or the mother, since the mother is always living with the child, so the mother would find the quirky behavior as routine. She's there with the child all the time. She wouldn't identify the quirky behavior as something that has to be addressed. She can just take it as routine, because she just is exposed to it all the time, and lot of exposure desensitizes the mother. She doesn't identify it as something that has to be addressed, and that is important. So this is something really important, that you cannot, sometimes mothers do not pick up the special behaviors, the different behaviors of a neurodivergent child, because she's desensitized to it. And then, as we've already said, that shared caregiving also helps the neurodivergent child a lot, and it helps the parents in performing their duties in a better way. Now, there's something else I want to tell you about autistic children or neurodivergent children, is that they like routines. They don't accept a sudden change. For example, if the breakfast is given at 8 a.m., they want it at 8 a.m. Or if they have a play at certain time, or if they have a mobile or a screen time, and you suddenly decide that this is not your screen time, they would throw tantrums. They would be very difficult to manage. So they love a routine. They want a routine, and they don't accept change of routine. So if you want an autistic child to have a different routine, you have to inform them like 3 to 4 days earlier. But if you are living in a joint family, in an extended family system, you see, the routines cannot be very, very predictable there, because might be the grandma's sister fell ill all of a sudden, and you have to make changes, or maybe guests come in, or at any time, like at before lunch, and you have to make changes in the lunch, or suddenly your mom's sister comes with all her children, and the children, especially the neurodivergent child, has to accommodate the guest children. So this if the child is exposed to this a lot, over and over again, I think possibly that the child would learn that any change can happen at any time. While if you live in a nuclear family or far away from all the relatives, you will be following a routine no matter what. You would go to school, come back, do this, do that. There wouldn't be sudden changes in the routine because of such social interactions. So possibly the child would learn how things might change within an hour. So that is a good um, lesson for neurodivergent children. Secondly, if you all know that ABA therapy actually aims at practice, like if the child is not putting his books correctly in the shelf, the ABA therapy would teach the child again and again and again to put things back in a particular way. Now, if you take a, a stressed mom or an overworked mom or a father who is all the time out and making ends meet, you wouldn't expect this from a mother. But if you have a grandparent, if you have an aunt or an uncle, or if you have an extended family member who's visiting you, might be, I'm trying to describe an ideal situation because there are toxicities around, but I'm trying to describe an ideal situation. They might help the child in teaching them how to arrange books in their shelf, or the aunt would do that, or an uncle would do that. If they're all responsible adults, they would do that. So this is like the child would be getting ABA therapy, or one of the grandparents, because the grandparents, by the time by their age, they usually have more patience, so they would teach the child again and again and again how to do a certain thing. So that would be a very, very low impact or a warm ABA therapy, because some people object on ABA therapy that it's very intense and it's not friendly. But such ABA therapies might be gentle and low impact and full of warmth. I also stress that multi-generational learning, like you learn from elders, from children, from younger people, from your peers, and the language development will be much better. So this is all the situation in where Mansoor grew up, and was all his neurodivergent characteristics had been addressed to the maximum, though the child had some stimming, some other minor challenges, but overall the child had a really good environment for development. Now, there's something more interesting here. Anything really interesting here is that in joint families, in close-knit extended families, there is inclusion. It's not like a classroom where the other children won't make friends. You have your cousins, you have your siblings who are your friends. They also love you. They don't have any other choice. They have to love you. They love you and they would include you. So it's not like the child wasn't invited to a birthday party of a classmate. If you have a birthday party in your family, the neurodivergent child is invited no matter what, and the child would be included in all the activities, because it's not just social interaction. There is also the element of love there. Then there is this rich linguistic environment of a joint family, and there will be cognitive stimulation of the neurodivergent child. The child wouldn't be non-verbal for long, because if the child is non-verbal, everything here is just my observation. I told you it's just an observation. Take it as an observation. So the child would learn the language quickly. The child would be hearing various speech patterns, commands, expressions, and they would improve the child's auditory processing and the expressive vocabulary. This would all help the child. And as I've said earlier, storytelling, music, prayer recitation, especially, how the grandparents teach children how the different prayers and how to recite those prayers, that would help the child improve the cognitive skills, and it would be a cognitive exercise that would stimulate memory, attention, and listening skills. If the child has like 4 or 5 birthday parties in the child's own family, the neurodivergent child's own family, and any case the child is invited, and because I told you there is this element of love, so he wouldn't care if the school or the class or the peers did not invite the child for on the birthday party because of his quirky habits or because of his different behavior. So that wouldn't matter a lot. So this is what I told about Mansoor, who was born and bred in South Asia. But what about Salman, who was born and bred in Europe? Now, I don't have to describe the opposite situation, but understand the opposite situation. It would be completely different. And unfortunately, even the natives of these countries, Europe, who have been living there for generations, they don't have this joint family system, or they don't have this close-knit extended family system, unfortunately, for a number of reasons. Unfortunately, the first world has maybe abandoned the extended family system, the close-knit extended family system, the joint family system, or even any relations with parents. Like if the child might be visiting a parent over the weekend, even that has been spaced out more. So you can very well imagine how Salman grew up and what challenges Salman faced. So it is just an observation what I'm telling you. Now the next important thing over here is that are there conflicts and jealousies in joint families? Well, yes, and these can be therapeutic for autistic individuals. How? Because if you see a child, a relative getting jealous, or if the child himself is getting jealous, one of the emotions, he would learn maybe over a period of months, he would learn how to identify a jealous behavior, jealous vibes, or he or she would learn how to address his own jealousies, how to combat his jealousies, or the conflicts. He would learn how to address the conflicts. He would see the parents having an argument with other members of the family members. The arguments would become a norm in their life, and they would know how to listen to an argument and how to come to a conclusion. They would themselves argue with other children, and they would know how to address arguments, how to reach to a settlement. So this also helps, especially within a family member, within cousins, because I told you that there is an element of love there, and that helps children a lot because it brings warmth and security to that particular interaction. So that is very important. So this is actually real world social learning. What the child it's like a vaccination. In vaccination, you are exposed to a very low quantity, exposed to a very low quantity of a pathogen that helps you combat or fight against the pathogen when it comes in larger amounts, when it comes to an amount where the load is too high and might give you the disease. So similarly, if you are exposed to these situations, you would learn how to combat arguments, jealousies, all these things in the future life, while you have learned all these things in a warm environment where there was an element of love. The child is not only learning the positive emotions, but also the negative emotions, and all in the warmth of a family system. Whilst if the child is at the school, the teacher would actually be acting to teach children all these emotions. They wouldn't be genuine, I must say. If the teacher has to teach the child what is anger, she is actually not allowed to show anger. But if she has to show anger, that would be acting, that wouldn't be the reality. So this is very important. I hope I have conveyed what I want to tell you how even conflicts in a extended family situation helps children develop social skills, helps children how to navigate in a social life, in an adult social life. So now there is a word of caution that not all conflict is healthy. Constant hostility, fights, or emotionally abusive dynamics can be harmful, especially for neurodivergent children. So, for the therapeutic potential to be realized, the family environment must still be emotionally safe and exclusive, which I have actually assumed during the whole podcast that it would be. As I said, that I have been trying to describe an ideal environment where there are conflicts, but within the warmth of the family, within the love of the family. And another thing, that adults should be emotionally literate and willing to explain or debrief conflicts to the child afterward. The child should feel seen, heard, and protected even in emotionally intense environment. And what I feel is that in a joint family and in an extended, close-knit extended family, once the child is born, the child has a personality, the child has an importance. The child is not just another student or another subject in school or another subject for a psychologist. The child has a personality where the child is taken as a member of the family and the child is seen, heard, and protected. So this is very important. I hope I have conveyed my point of view. It is just an observation. It is not a research. It is just how an extended family system, a joint family system can support a neurodivergent child. So that is what I wanted to tell you. Make life easy for others.